Alright guys, so this is going to be the second part of what we're doing this week. The next property of exponents that we're looking at is when you divide like bases. So how this works is, let's say you have x to the fourth, y to the third in a fraction, and then on the bottom you have just an x and y to the fifth. So remember that a fraction bar is the same thing as division, okay? They mean the same thing. So first off, let's just go and write these out for what it literally means. This literally means 4 x's multiplied together, and then 3 y's. Okay, let's do this. Oops. And then on the bottom, we just have the 1x, and then we have 5 y's. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So essentially what happens is anytime you multiply a number by itself, they essentially cancel out, because any number divided by itself is 1. So when I've got an x on the both the top and the bottom of a fraction, they're going to cancel out. Same thing with the y's. These are just going to cancel out every time I have both. So what I'm left with is x to the third power over y to the second power. So where that comes from, as far as so that you don't have to write this out every single time, is that if you look at the x's, right, and remember that if there's nothing there, it's a 1. Essentially, what we did was we subtracted. We did 4 minus 1 to give us 3. Then with the y's, I did the same thing. We did 5 minus 3 equals 2. The important difference here is there were more y's on the bottom, right? The bigger exponent was on the bottom. So that means that that base, the y, is going to stay on the bottom of my fraction. Okay, that way we don't have to worry about getting negative exponents. So if you come down to the examples, right, just like it was with multiplying with coefficients, you're going to divide them if you can. 3 doesn't really divide by 2, so I'm just going to leave that. I'll leave them alone because that doesn't simplify. Then with my m's, if there's nothing there, it's a 1. So there's more m's on the bottom. So that's where I'm going to write m. And then I just subtract. So 3 minus 1 is 2. Then with my n's, there's more of them on the top, right? Because 3 is bigger than 2. So I'm going to write that on top. And when I subtract, I just get n to the 1 power. Now you don't have to write n to the 1. In fact, on multiple choice, it'll just look like n. They won't write n to the first power. So just something to be aware of. But then that's my final answer, okay? So another example, there's a coefficient on the bottom here. So that 2 doesn't divide with anything because it's the only one, so it'll stay there. Then with my a's, if you'll notice, there's 3 of both. So there's not more on the top or bottom. Those are going to cancel out with each other. 3 minus 3 is 0. And anything to the 0 power is 1. Just kind of disappears. So if that ever happens, that base, that variable is just gone. Then with my b's, I have 2 here and a 1 there. So there's more on top. And then 2 minus 1 is just 1. So the answer is b over 2. Okay. All right. So when we add back in the negatives, you are going to want to get rid of the negatives first. So anytime you have a negative exponent, flip it to the other side. So that'll be x3, y2, x1. Remember that negative only applies to what it's attached to. And then I'll start with my coefficients. That's the only 2. So it's going to stay where it is. Now all of my x's are on top. So it's like what we did at the beginning with part 1 of this. They just add together. So x to the 4th. Then with my y's, it's the only one. So it's just going to stay where it is. Y squared. And then I'm done. Okay? So I got one more example of that. With this, first thing, anything to the 0 power just goes away. And then this guy is going to flip to the bottom. So if you want, you can go ahead and just write it down there at the bottom. Okay? And then once you do, just cross them off on top. So first I'm going to start with my coefficients. 4 divided by 4 is just 1. So those kind of cancel out with each other. Then I've got my y's. So remember, if there's nothing there, it's a 1. 4 minus, so there's more 4s on the top. So the y's are going to stay on top, and then I subtract. So 4 minus 1 is 3, so I have y to the 3rd power on top. Next, if I look at my x's, they're both on the bottom now, so I'm going to add those together because they're on the same level. So 2 plus 1 is 3, so I've just got x to the 3rd. And then last, my z to the 0 disappeared, so there's only one z left, so he's just going to stay where he is. And then I'm done. I know that these can get tricky. That's why we're taking it slow. It's all multiple choice. So hopefully you're able to help. If you have questions, please come to the 5th period Zoom meeting. That is scheduled by the school. I will post a link in Google Classroom, so that's a great place to come if you have questions about anything. You can also email me, comment on Google Classroom, or Google stuff yourself and look up any resources you can find on the internet. Okay, there's lots of options. So good luck this week with NTI. I hope you're doing okay in all of your classes. And there's still a lot of people I haven't heard from, so I hope I hear from you soon.